I know you also talk about how this trained innate immunity might have something to do with the endocannabinoid system. Can you elaborate further on how, if there's interaction there, or if it's different? And like you said before, like we know that some things are interacting with that ECS, like cannabis for one, and then some more herbal things, lesser known, like echinacea. So, what's the connection here between the endocannabinoid system?
It's also a tough question. It's hard to explain these things that are, quite highly complex. But within the immune system, there's the endocannabinoid system is a series of receptors. So it's, CB1 and CB2 receptors. There's a whole bunch of other ones as well, TRPV, and the list is quite long, really. And then there's a whole bunch of molecules that can interact with those receptors. And then there's a whole bunch of molecules, proteins that traffic those things around and make it all work and degrade the agonist, to decrease their effects. So when we're interacting between these two concepts of mushrooms and the endocannabinoid system is designed to keep the immune system running harmoniously and smoothly. Where there's a normal level of danger present, the endocannabinoid system increases its expression of CB receptors on the surface of the cells, and it increases the production of endocannabinoids. And typically the thinking behind the process, the wisdom behind the process is to try and keep things calm and to allow the immune system to do its job of removing or infected cells or, getting rid of, any sort of invading pathogen without the immune system going too crazy. So if there's too much danger, the endocannabinoid system withdraws its CB receptors from the surface, and that allows the immune system to run much hotter and faster and deal with more of a threat. When that happens, you're then exposed to the potential of autoimmune diseases and tissue damage and all that sort of stuff. So the balances are very delicate. That's where the echinacea comes in that we talked about earlier, by maintaining that. So mushrooms play a role, I believe, because they help to maintain the immune system in a more calm and controlled and collected state. So the polysaccharides that we're talking about interact with pattern recognition receptors on the surfaces of these cells. So there's a whole bunch of toll-like receptors on the surface. There's some toll-like receptors inside the cells. And there's dectin-1, which seems to be a main receptor for fungal polysaccharides, but there's CR3 and LAC-THR. There's a whole bunch of them. So the complex interaction of the fungal polysaccharides at these receptors, I believe, plays a team role along with the immune cells to allow the endocannabinoid system to maintain, a more optimal and harmonious balance, and to prevent things from getting out of control as much as they could in the absence of the mushroom. So I don't think that the mushrooms are necessarily interacting with, CB1 and CB2 receptors. You can't dissect out and look at these things as, single kind of systems where there's very complex interactions. So this is why, scientists call mushrooms immune stimulants. They also call echinacea an immune stimulant purely because of the mechanisms that are seen in vitro studies. But when you put them in the human body, they don't just mindlessly, wildly stimulate your immune system so it whips it up into a frenzy and you can make autoimmune diseases worse and make cancer worse. And, it just doesn't work like that, right? So I think mushrooms is it's like delivering computer software, into your body, and it allows your body to read that code and go, oh, I can relax, I can be calm, I can be much more responsive and vigilant. So I think they work together like a hand in a glove.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, just the way you described it in terms of the immune physiology, and then pairing that with what we know the mushrooms are doing. And then, like you said, there's so many unknowns there that we still don't know, but we do know that our bodies are intelligent. These plants and mushrooms have their own level of intelligence. So the whole cohesion with that seems like a good recipe.
I used to say that, echinacea was essential on a daily basis. If you could afford to take one thing, that's a really important thing to take. Well, I'm now saying that exact same thing about mushrooms. They're that important. You should be taking them, as often as you can. And, they're fundamental to your good health and the prevention of all of the awful things that happen in your life. And when you're younger, patients think that they're invincible. Not until they get, into their 50s and 60s that they realize, oh, I've got some health challenges. The earlier that you get on board with these things, the healthier you can be in your older age, for sure.
Yeah, that goes a long way for sure. Talking about just like the endocannabinoid system clinically, are you ever like, hey, this patient needs some support in this area? And what does it look like? Is it like, do they get sick a lot? Are they have some mood stuff? What's it like? Do you ever look at it that way and just being like, oh yeah, this system needs help?
If your endocannabinoid system's, not optimal, then you're going to get sick more often. The sickness won't resolve as easily as it might in another patient. And there's a greater chance of having more mood disturbance in a patient. But the most common presentation of it is, frequency of infections. Pretty hard thing to nail though, because, it's active everywhere in the body. It's very adaptive. So it only shows up in the immune system when it's almost broken. The herbs that I use to fix that, I talked about echinacea, but astragalus, andrographis in acute situations, they're the key ones. And there's a big overlap between the polysaccharides in astragalus and what's going on in the mushrooms. I think that those two things combined provide a lot of benefit as well.
Yeah, there seems to be a real nice synergy there between those two, especially astragalus and some of these mushrooms.